Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of ASEC Conversations. Today, our special guest is Mr. Joe Castiglione, Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics Programs and Director of Athletics at the University of Oklahoma. At this time, I'll turn it over to our host, Ashley Hammett. Ashley?
Hello, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
You played football in high school, and what led you to your decision to walk on at Maryland?
Really just the love of the sport. I wasn't recruited, which was fine. I wanted to try the opportunity to play major college football. Back then it was different limits for scholarships and players. So I was one of maybe 145 or 150 out for football. So you might say I walked on and walked off just about, as fast. It was a great experience. And then I realized that it wasn't going to be my long-term future, but finishing my degree was. And so it actually is what led me to seek an opportunity to work with intercollegiate athletics, not necessarily because it was part of my career aspirations, just to stay close to the sports because I loved it so much. And obviously the connection to why I tried to play at the college level. And lo and behold, it turned into more than just a passion. It turned into a long-term career.
I read that you did not have specific aspirations of being an athletic director while you were growing up. Other than being an athletic director or deciding to play collegiate sports yourself, what else did you have in mind?
It's not the easiest segue or the most natural one, I guess you could say, but I literally was pursuing a degree in speech pathology. I was very interested in both speech pathology and audiology and really liked it and came across this opportunity in intercollegiate athletics, really unforeseen, unplanned, probably had to look at it as more of a risk, but knew if the risk didn't work out, I always had something else to fall back on. And I happened to have the opportunity to get in on the ground floor of something which I thought could be very exciting. And that was the growth of sports marketing in the college sector. Now, it seems kind of odd to talk about sports marketing in today's world. Like, hasn't it been around since the beginning of time? No, it really hasn't at the college level. I was fortunate that I was working in an athletic program at Maryland that was seen as one of the pioneers of sports marketing in the collegiate space. And because of that, I had a chance to learn a lot and wanted to try to take what I had learned and apply it somewhere else. And wasn't easy to try to crack through a door, but I was able to do that and got my first job interview and subsequently job offer to work at Rice University in Houston, Texas.
When you were hired at Oklahoma, the late, great Donnie Duncan said, "I have a very, very high regard for Joe and Joe's abilities. I think he's a tremendous choice and the right choice as both a person and a professional." How did that make you feel knowing that you had his endorsement?
That was one of the probably more meaningful ones that I had. And I'll tell you why. And of course, Donnie Duncan has a lot of connection with the Phoenix area and the Fiesta Bowl through his role in collegiate administration, as well as working with the Big 12 Conference. But I got to know Donnie as an AD at Oklahoma. I actually sat across the conference table in many Big 12 meetings and really just marveled at his skill in reading a room, understanding the politics of a situation, being sort of like that person that when Donnie spoke, everybody listened because he could really, assess the situation. Had a great background as a player, as an assistant coach, as a head coach in college football, and then went on to be an administrator and the athletic director here at Oklahoma. Never expected, to end up at Oklahoma myself. I didn't necessarily replace Donnie. I came about a year and a half after he left to go work at the Big 12 Conference as a senior associate commissioner, but never lost track of him, got to know him, like him, and became a dear friend. And so that meant the world to me. I could talk a lot about Donnie Duncan.
One of your first and maybe best moves at Oklahoma was the hiring of first-time coach Bob Stoops, who became the winningest coach at OU. What was it about him that suggested that a rookie head coach would be such a winner?
Well, certainly you can point at his career journey to the point where we were interested in not just talking to him, but obviously hiring him as our head coach. He had been around, some of the great minds in college football, both as a player, as an assistant coach, and as a coordinator. I mean, everybody that he played for or coached with, is in the College Hall of Fame. And and rightfully so, they were people that changed the game. But Bob, I studied a lot about him. He's a son of a coach. His whole family was very athletic. He played multiple sports in high school, and went on, to play at the University of Iowa. And just like he was at his high school in Youngstown, Ohio, he quickly became a leader within the Iowa football team and, captain, when, he moved further along in the class rank. And just because he was a guy that his team responded to. And I think probably that's why people were, very quick to help Bob, get into coaching, because they saw his natural skill set and wanted to help him develop it. And so I did a lot of study about him before, he got to that current job where we hired him, and that was the defensive coordinator at the University of Florida. And I called people all the way back to, the secretaries and, people in the media, and just wanted to find out how he was away from the office. But then when you meet with Bob, not just his preparation, his mind for the game, his vision of what he wanted in terms of the culture and the teams that he wanted to build, but his own self-awareness, the understanding of the role of, becoming a head coach, and, his confidence. A lot of times, people did get to see Bob's confidence play out in many different decisions that he made during the course of the game. I mean, look, let's face it, like you said, he became the winningest coach in Oklahoma history. He won a national championship in his second year here at Oklahoma. But his confidence was something else. Right about the time, Coach Stoops became the head coach here, there was a young player in the world of professional golf that was becoming more and more successful simultaneously. And I saw a lot of traits, that people marveled about Tiger Woods in Bob Stoops as a head football coach. I really did. I mean, for some reason, Bob had this incredible confidence about whatever he faced, and it became contagious. I felt many times that his, not just his enthusiasm, but his confidence in what they were doing carried over to the players, and the players really picked up on that and would go out and do something that maybe few ever thought would be possible. And it came to a point where they did it so often, they nicknamed Coach Stoops Big Game Bob, because he made big time decisions that won big time games.
Oklahoma is one of the most successful athletic programs in the country. How do you consistently produce such powerful teams that maintain such a successful program?
Well, I believe it starts obviously with getting the best student athletes in the country. We want people to understand what it is that we create in terms of the architectural plan for student athlete success. It obviously has to coalesce around a world-class experience. And that's not just the resources that we put into it, but the way people perceive and then adapt and really take advantage of all those resources while they're here. And we know that they have the highest of athletic goals and academic goals, and they need to grow as a person. So we have our student athletes, for the most part, 4 or 5 years. Some are fortunate, to get drafted earlier in their college career, so we may not have them as long. But whatever time we do have them, we want them to know from the day they step on their campus, and we literally start, the process of training when they do step on campus to the time they leave, that we've tried to give them every possible skill to grow as a person, be successful athletically and academically, and to be part of a system, be part of a culture that pursues, the highest goals possible. We make no bones about it. We're always trying to pursue winning championships. No reason to apologize, but we've had just as many student athletes that I would call champions that may not have actually won a championship, but they were the right kind of leaders. They had the right kind of character. They did things that people never thought could happen. And maybe even in their own circle, some people didn't know that they could pull the things off that they pull off while they're in college, because they took advantage of all those resources and really succeeded, and then went on to whatever their livelihood was after college. And I think those are people, regardless of a trophy, a medal, a plaque, or whatever, piece of hardware you want to talk about that designates them as a champion. They're as big a champions as any in my mind.
So 19 national championships and 92 conference titles during your tenure is remarkable. What is your magic formula for such consistency?
Well, again, putting people in a position to be successful. I just play a small role. I mentioned the student athlete focus. That's our priority, plain and simple. We wouldn't exist if we didn't have student athletes to mentor, guide, support, lead. But to do that, obviously, we have to hire and then work hard to retain the very best coaches in the country. And I say often that I'm very, very blessed as an athletic director to work day to day with 16 outstanding head coaches. And that's a great number of sports. Totals about 21 sports, that we sponsor. 21, not about. We do sponsor 21, and they're very successful. They've chose to become part of Oklahoma's program and then stay at Oklahoma because they believe too that we have all the resources here to be as successful as any program in the country, and we try to do it the right way. And that's what I think goes back to what I'm saying about culture. We all have a role to play in the culture.
Paula Boyven is a highly respected woman in the state of Arizona as a sports reporter and professor. What is it like working alongside her on the college football playoff selection committee?
Love Paula. I love Paula. We are having such a great time working together. We actually came in to the college football selection committee at the exact same time. So we were rookies at the same time. We did all the training together. We worked together. And she's been a joy. She has made extraordinary contribution as a member. I learned a lot from her, both talking before, during or after meetings when we're not in session, but certainly when I hear her speak during the meetings and during really our deliberations, when we're trying to make the best decisions possible to fulfill the role that we're given. I actually had the benefit of I don't know if I could go as far as saying knowing Paula, although we had crossed paths a couple of times, several times actually, where she interviewed me for various stories as a journalist. So I at least had a chance to have some experience. And I asked her, I said, was I a good interviewee? Did I give you full transparency? Did I answer your questions? And fortunately, she said yes. But anyway, she's awesome. And I really would love to come out someday and see her in her new career, although it's not brand new, but what she's been doing for the last several years. working in the J School, and I know how much she loves teaching and how much she loves interacting with the students and playing a role in their development. So she's a great one. I could go on and on. We could just talk the rest of the time about Paula. That's how much I think of her.
As an athletic director, you have a special affinity for walk-ons because of your professional experience?
Yeah, I do. Because I want to see, and I often see how people take control of their own life and want to pursue a dream, even if it hasn't been offered to them. And, they understand what they have to go through, that they're entering at the bottom, that little to nothing would ever be given to them. Now you never play. I'm a perfect example. I never got in a game. That wasn't it. I wanted to be part of a team, and I've also had a chance, both with my experience and because I have followed it closely, to watch many players who were too small, too slow, too this or not too that, or whatever reason. They went overlooked. They were passed up. They were told no by so many people, told they couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And, they wouldn't take no for an answer. I identify with that, because I've been, part of that kind of experience much of my life, where I had, dreams that I want to pursue, and, people weren't really laying out the red carpet to, make it possible for you to pursue those dreams. A lot of times they questioned it, dismissed it, or whatever. So I really do identify with that. And I've watched people overcome that time and time again. They go from being passed up to maybe getting people's attention, to getting to play a little bit, making the most of their opportunity, getting another chance to do something, getting a role, getting a starting position, getting a scholarship, and maybe even more. I was around probably the greatest walk-on that has come along in memory. And he became a Heisman Trophy winner, and he was the #1 overall draft pick in the NFL draft a few years ago. His name's Baker Mayfield. And Kyler Murray, who is now the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, was his backup. Kyler was an outstanding player. He actually transferred here after starting his career at Texas A&M. And Kyler replaced Baker when Baker finished his career. So, there were other walk-ons on that team that earned scholarships and are playing in the NFL. So it just goes to show you that many people can find a way to pursue their dream and make it happen. Just depends on, the level of their passion and their ability to stick to their guns.
What is your favorite type of music, and what is your favorite song?
Well, I'm multi-genre. So I love every kind of music, to be candid with you. Probably more reflection of my life. I was growing up, I probably would say I was more, around rock music. And then, I lived through the disco era. And then, through the 80s and the 90s, I started loving country music. Love country music, but I appreciate all kinds of music. My favorite, I'd probably say my top 3 favorite singers are Billy Joel, Elton John, and Neil Diamond. But, I loved Van Halen. I talk about, a lot of rock groups that I liked, or country music. I'm very fortunate to have a really close friend in Toby Keith. So followed country music. My son is actually a musician, my youngest son. So he has both a rock band, but his favorite music is country. So he has an acoustic band that plays country. So I get a little bit of everything. So I'd say my favorite song, probably by Billy Joel, is Piano Man.
The Holiday Bowl recently announced that they are not going to have a game this year due to the pandemic. How likely is it that other college football bowl games will follow suit?
Well, I'm not able to give you a good prediction, but I think there are chances where we may see more of this. I know it's the last thing a bowl wants to do. They're still trying to, be part of their civic responsibility. They've put a lot of time and effort into creating the bowl, to keeping it going. They're passionate too. They want to be able to find a way to push through the challenges, but they're getting daunting and things are happening out of their control. And, some of them might even be related to the fact they can't guarantee the game's going to go on. We're seeing interruptions, disruptions in college football. We expected those. I think people are doing a heck of a great job making sure that everything we're doing is safe, that the welfare and the health of all people involved have been the number one priority. But we've proven that we can navigate a very difficult environment and landscape to still have sports, not just college football. You see the NFL, Major League Baseball just finished, with the not College World Series, the World Series. So you could tell I'm in college. The PGA is finishing their tour. We're going to have the Masters in a few weeks, which is not the usual time of year, but they're making it happen. The NASCAR, soccer, hockey, the NBA, everybody's proven, that they can figure out a way to do it. And I give great credit because it took a lot of effort, ingenuity, expense, whatever it was, to make sure it could happen. And I know the Bulls themselves are trying to figure out how they can do this, and, hoping that if they do stage the game, that both teams will be able to participate when the time comes.
What do you think will be the long-term effects of the pandemic on collegiate athletics?
I think it's going to promote change, to be honest with you. Right now, we're probably having to play a lot more defense because, we have financial pressures. We're not able to play as many games as we used to. We're not having anywhere near as many fans. Obviously, we're way more than 75%, of the fans that we normally have are not there. And so we're talking about 25% or less, than that in capacity of our venues. So you have economic impacts of all of those kinds of situations, plus the cost of testing and other PPE, everything that's going around to have safe sport. So you have some expenses going up that weren't there. But all that being said, you're trying to protect all the resources that college athletics can muster to support student athletes in all of their endeavors, academically, athletically, and grow. We're just having to do it in a different kind of environment. Half the classes are online, if not all online. They're not able to be around their friends like they usually are. We're dealing with a lot more mental health challenges than we've ever had. And those are only going to increase. I mean, we're not the only ones. We don't sit here and talk about college athletics and complain about it. It's just the way it is. We know people throughout every one of our communities are facing challenges, lost jobs, interruption of income challenges, health challenges. There's just so many to talk about. And I think the best thing that I've told our staff is we've got two things that we have to do here. We've got to learn how to survive through the storm. And then we have to be planning to thrive when the storm passes. So it's an actual twofold process here. And we don't know exactly that things will look the same. In fact, I could say we're not going back to normal like we thought about it 7 or 8 months ago. It's not going to happen. We may get back to things that feel a lot more normal like we remember, but it's not going to always be identical in every case. So we've got to be smart about defining the new normal, whatever it is. And so I think that, we're not through the pandemic yet, so we can't really, again, talk about that in past tense, but I think it's actually creating, the initiative for substantial change that when it's all said and done and we do emerge from these big challenges, that we may look a lot different, but we'll have defined the rest of the 21st century for whatever endeavor we're part of.
Who has influenced you the most throughout your career?
You talk about a lot of people, boy, that would take a long, long time. I've, think about my family first, both my mom and dad and my immediate family, and of course now my wife and my two sons, because they've all played, a significant role. People I've worked for, mentors that I have in this business. I talk about, my bosses, college presidents, commissioners, people in the media. There's so many different people that I've been around that I think have positively influenced me a great deal. But I think it's the why of what I do. And that's to try to put people in a position to be successful. I'm more concerned with how I can invest in their success than my own. And I've been blessed to be able to be in a position to do that. But I celebrate, what I do, seeing them have success. That's some of my greatest memories, watching people succeed, especially when very few ever gave them a chance. That's the greatest return for the job that I have.
And then finally, what is one thing that most people do not know about you?
I am really funny. You have to watch what you do in the role that I have. This is my 28th year being an athletic director. There are cell phones, they have videos, people take pictures. You have to be really careful. But before cell phones, I just enjoy being with people that like to have fun. And it's not that I don't have fun. I don't want to sound like, if you're an AD, you've had to turn it into a curmudgeon or anything like that. But, you feel like you have to be guarded maybe a lot, because the people that might be with you know that, within the context of what you're doing, it's fun. But the way people edit video, you just never know what's going to happen. And so I was a practical joker, growing up. Not anything malicious or mean. I just love to see people laugh. So I would always concoct things to help them laugh. Sometimes, laugh at themselves, but laugh at the experience. And I learned a lot of that from the people who did the very same thing to me. So I've really been stunted in my growth, and I can't always get back at them, in that fun, way of turnabout is fair play, if you will. But I think, they see my sense of humor, and I can still display it in a lot of ways. But I like to have a lot of fun, with people and enjoy life. That's what it's about. You got to enjoy life. And so I have to pick my spots, just because I just don't want to see people misinterpret it for the wrong reasons. And not that I'm ever embarrassed or ashamed of what I would be doing, but you know how it is. This people are today's world. They just look at things so differently. And so we have to be a little bit more guarded.
Well, those are all the questions that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Castiglione, for your time today, and for all of you who joined us. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on ASEC Conversations.